Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 424, May the 8th, 2017, Tuesday, election day here in Ohio. Well, I'll tell you, unfortunately we do have a governor's race tomorrow that we'll be voting on, and also a Senate seat. So these are the two I'm most focused on. And unfortunately, in the governor's race, of course, we've had Kasich, who's a major Trump hater, as you all know. So we're getting rid of Kasich, who is actually technically a Republican, but Republican light for sure, and a hardcore anti-Trumper. And he is, so he's gone. And so our choices, unfortunately, are not very good. Cannot understand how in a state like Ohio that we cannot get a really good, hardcore, libertarian, populist, conservative, something other than a establishment shill politician. But that's what our choice is tomorrow, if you're a Republican. So our choice is between Mike DeWine, who's a career politician, kind of a, just your typical establishment Republican, been around, he's been in politics all his life, his family was in politics. He's just a career politician who's doublespeak and, the classic politician. He's the swamp, basically. He's been in the state of Ohio swamp. He'll move to the D.C. swamp. That's the only thing that will change. Maybe he'll support Trump. Of course, the last month actually, he and his opponent both been running campaign ads trying to see who could prove that they're more pro-Trump. The funny thing is, his opponent, this woman, Taylor, she was of course Kasich's deputy governor or assistant governor, lieutenant governor, I think is what she was called. The lieutenant governor, Mary Taylor. Now, of course, we all know how Kasich felt about Trump, so I doubt that Mary Taylor would have come out and supported Trump anyway, but she never did anyhow. So neither of these two are very good. But the most important thing is to defeat the Democrat, which will likely be Sherrod Brown, who's a hardcore lefty, again, career politician. This guy, it's all he does is run for office. He runs for Congress. If he loses, he runs for Senate when it comes up. The next time he'll run for governor. The next time he'll run for this. He'll run for treasurer. He'll run for any political office, high levels he can get in any election that comes up. And he usually loses. He did win a term in Congress, but he's horrible, and we don't want him here. He's a big supporter of the Rotten Reverend, campaigned for her all over the country. She's a big booster of his, and so we want nothing to do with him. So defeating him is the most important thing tomorrow. And so, unfortunately, I think I'll have to hold my nose and vote for DeWine, because I think DeWine gives us a better chance of beating this Hillary Clinton puppet, who we don't want, Sherrod Brown. So I think I'll have to vote for DeWine over Sherrod Brown. But you could vote for Mary Taylor. It's a coin toss. But I think that DeWine gives us a better chance because he's been around forever. Everybody knows his name. He served as treasurer. He's been to Congress. He's been around a long time and been in a lot of places. So anyhow, I think I have to vote DeWine. It's a tougher call now on the Senate seat because we have Jim Ranucci, who Trump called out here in Cincinnati when he was doing an event here, and he praised him. And I know Ranucci has been a Trump supporter, but he got connections. He was a lobbyist. He's got ties to the swamp. I don't know exactly what his politics are, but he's been a big Trump supporter, so I'm kind of inclined to vote for him. But then again, there's a businessman that a lot of people like a lot that's never been in politics, never been in Congress, never served in any political office. He's a reasonable, intelligent, down-to-earth sort of Southern Ohio average Joe, but he's a smart, a successful businessman as well. So I'm leaning between the two. I haven't made my mind up on that yet. Either one of those would be probably pretty good. So, and we just have to defeat the Democrat, but we will in this particular race. I think in the Senate race, I think we're good. So the governor is a little more tricky, but I think the Senate, I think we'll hold on to that seat with the Republican, whether it's Ranucci or this businessman. So we'll see how that turns out, but I'm sure a lot of you are voting tomorrow, so happy voting. Now, let's see. Offense. I talk a lot about offense, which we haven't been getting a lot. Now we're getting some, but it's just not quite what we need. We need a massive attack, and it hasn't been happening. But since this judge came out on Friday, Ellis, and made that ruling, and the comments that he made, along with other certain members of Congress, the Freedom Caucus and others, I think it's time to use a massive, to call in a big play, you might say. It's time to call in the big play. The situation on the field looks right. There's a vulnerability there because of the massive pushback that Mueller got in court on Friday from Judge Ellis. So I think there's a golden opportunity right now to send in a big play. It's like almost like in a football game, the momentum. When the momentum is on your side, that's when you go for the big play. When momentum is against you, that's when you circle the wagons and defend yourself. But once you've defended yourself and then you get a little breathing room and something happens to change the momentum in the game, that's when you throw the big play. What do the Patriots do every time that they get a turnover? Every time the Patriots recover a fumble or every time that they pick off the ball, as soon as they get the ball back, Brady comes out and he makes a big play. He whips one, 60 yards downfield, then he does another one, and next thing you know, they're in the end zone and they've scored. They capitalize on almost every time you screw up against the Patriots, they capitalize. It's because as soon as they feel the momentum shift in the game of a fumble or a turnover or something like that, they come in and they don't, hand off and try to get 3 yards and try to work the ball downfield. They come in, they've got you on your heels, you're a little confused, the momentum has changed, the energy has changed, they come out and catch you just a little bit off and bam, they drop a big play on you and beat you every time. And right now the momentum has changed with that gut punch from Judge Ellis on Friday, and it's time to go on massive offense and send in the big play. What do you think, Peter? I know Peter would send in the big play right now. If Peter's on the sideline, he'd say, now, send in the big play. Hit him now. 50-yard pass downfield. That's what you do. So what does this mean in political terms, in terms of the Mueller investigation? Well, what it means is you break out the big play, and that is Nunezs or Grassley or Gowdy, doesn't matter which one, any of their 3 committees, they need to immediately call Uncle Bob, the special executioner. They need to call him in for open congressional hearings and delve in to exactly what he's doing. And this should be followed by the immediate release of this secret document that Mueller's team wants to hide from this judge who's not having any of it, or Nunez's committee, which is having none of it, and Grassley's committee, by the way. Both want this document. It's the document that shows from Rosenstein to Mueller, showing what his authority was, what the scope of his investigation could be, what his instructions were. Because it is very important to that judge to see that. He's got to know. You can't hide that. Got to know. And Nunez and Grassley and even the Oversight Committee has the legal authority under the Constitution. In fact, I understand that there's over 23 reaffirmations in the Constitution where Congress has the power to subpoena any documents. And when you're talking about intelligence related, we have the Gang of Eight, which is headed really by Nunez. He's like the ranking member in the House. And then the ranking member in the Senate would be the ranking Republican. They can see everything. They've got the clearances to see everything. And if it's a legal issue, something on that line, then it goes to the judiciary committees, and they can see everything. So whether it's judicial or whether it's national security or something like that, we have members of Congress who are constitutionally provided and are bound by the Constitution to request those documents and provide oversight. It's there in the Constitution, regardless of what Rosenstein or Sessions think, or no shit Sherlock Ray. The fact of the matter is they have oversight authority. They have the right to see those documents, as does this judge. So now the judge has delivered it's not the knockout punch, but it's the one that when you see this boxer get hit with this punch, it's the one where you see his eyes go like that, and he darts back, and they give him the 10 count. He's kind of woozy. Mueller has just been given the 10 count. Now it's the time. The momentum has changed, and it's time for one of these three committees, or all three, to agree to call Mueller in, sit his butt down in front of that committee, and start asking some serious questions. And they need to have this secret document pronto, so that when he sits down in front of them, they can refer to that. That's what needs to happen right now. Drag Mueller in for hearings, open hearings, and ask him some questions. Offense, big time offense. Take advantage of the momentum shift in the game and call in the big play. Grill Uncle Bob, the executioner, on C-SPAN. There you go. Is John effing, what's his name, Kerry, is John effing Kerry violating the Logan Act? If you remember, it was Silly Sally Yates that started her investigation of Flynn based on the Logan Act. The Boston Herald, not exactly a bastion of conservatism, is calling for an investigation. Dershowitz says, yes, he is violating the Logan Act. Well, you can Google the Logan Act, and you can read it right there for yourself. They give you the short version, like the one paragraph. Just type it into Google and read it. It pops right up. You can read it. It's really simple. Yes, John Kerry technically is violating the Logan Act. A lot of people violate the Logan Act. Depends on whether or not you want to prosecute it or not. But what he's doing is vile. He's trying to conduct a shadow foreign policy to create massive conflict within with what the president's trying to do. Someone should shut John Kerry down. He's way out of line. John effing Kerry. Did you know he served in Vietnam? John effing Kerry. The rotten Reverend Clinton says that she thought about relocating to New Zealand after losing. Too bad she didn't. You know, Reverend, I don't think New Zealand really would be the best choice. I think you might want to select Paraguay, someplace that has a non-extradition treaty. But she says that she's not going to New Zealand because there is too much work to do here. Whew. I'm sure the Democrats are pleased to hear that Hillary... I bet the Democrats will probably give her a plane ticket and 6 months play money, running around money, just to go to New Zealand, not to be around for the elections. But we'll get to another story here in a minute I think you'll like. Let's see. The DNC is desperate. They are now openly lying to their supporters. They sent fundraising emails claiming that if they can gather 1 million signatures, Trump will have to answer Mueller's questions. This, of course, is a lie. It's a big fat lie, and they know it. No, what this is a campaign fundraising tool to get 1 million suckers to put in their name and email address into a website dialog box so that they can then get follow-up emails for the rest of their life to donate to the Reverend Clinton, one of her pay-for-play charities, or possibly the DNC, which somehow will get funneled back into the pockets of the Clintons, you can bet. They're looking for 1 million suckers. Don't be one of them. I know there's Democrats that watch my YouTube videos. They're getting it figured out. Trump is threatening a shutdown, a government shutdown over the wall. Now, on these types of issues, you can go big or stay at home. There's no halfway ground, especially in an election year. I think you'll find that the political climate will not be very happy with that. You don't want to be, running an election while you're pulling off a government shutdown. That's generally considered to be bad news. But in the world of Trump and in the era of Trump, everything has to be rethought. Everything has to be rethought. If he's going to do it, he should bring in Dick Morris. Dick Morris managed Bill Clinton through a government shutdown, and he came out winning big time, and the Republicans came out looking very bad. He should call Dick Morris and get some advice from him. I'm not an expert political analyst, but it's tricky business. But I will say that public opinion is probably on, I'm certain it's public opinion is on Trump's side on the issue, but whether or not the public is on side with you to shut down the government, to force that, that's always a very tricky thing to do, and I would caution that. You can do it. Again, it's a coin toss. It could go either way. Trump's, he would do it if the political people around him cannot talk him out of it. We'll see what he chooses to do with that. Well, Senator Magoo's first wife is now speaking out about how Magoo dumped her after her crippling car wreck. For those of you who don't know, when Senator Magoo was a POW in Vietnam for 5 years, his wife stuck by him every day. But during that time period, about 2 years before his release, she was involved in a car accident. And she was somewhat disfigured and immobilized, you might say, as a result. Now, she was actually a beauty queen and aspiring actress when, and model and actress when Magoo met her. They have, I think, 2 or 3 kids. So she's there with the kids. He's a POW. She's supporting him all the way. Then he comes back, realizes his wife is somewhat disfigured and doesn't look the way she did before. 2 years later, I guess he divorces her. He runs into his current wife, Cindy, whose family is loaded. And that they decide here could be this young politician who they could bankroll that would serve their interests. So they guarantee to bankroll his political career if he hooks up with their daughter, Cindy. And so that is exactly how that all happened. So McCain got with Cindy. He received the money he needed to back him politically from her super wealthy family. And that's how Senator Magoo got his start in politics. And that's the master he serves. And that's what a disgusting slimeball he is. Mr. Magoo, McNasty. The Dems are calling out the GOP for using Clinton in ads, saying she's not running. That's not fair. You can't use Hillary against us. Oh yeah, we can. And we're going to. Yes, just as I told you months and months and months ago, they've had these videos in the can for months and months. And they are videos of the Right Reverend Clinton, of all these Democrats running in districts where it's kind of dicey. They're showing these ads with these particular people running for office on stage with Hillary, supporting her in 2016. And they're essentially morphing all these candidates into Hillary. They're essentially trying to turn every Democrat in the country that's running, especially in these sort of purple states, they're trying to morph them into Hillary. And it's very effective. Very effective. And you can expect to see a lot more of that, by the way. When you get into like September and the congressional elections, oh man, you are going to see the motherload of the Right Reverend Clinton. We don't want to see it, but then again, it's for a good cause. To get the turnout very, very low for the Democrats, because nothing turns off progressive Democrats like the Right Reverend Clinton. Them young kids, they're not the Bernie bros. When they see the Right Reverend Clinton on the screen, they have no desire to go and vote. I can assure you of that. Not for the establishment Democrats who supported her over Bernie. Well, something's very interesting, of course, about this letter. We know that Nunez sent this letter to try to get this secret document that shows what was going on with the FISA court. And what's really interesting is the letter that comes back from the Department of Justice and Sessions to Nunez, because it specifically states in that letter, and it refers to it for like a couple of paragraphs, like it's the major request that Nunez wants. And so we learn about what the specific thing is that he wants, that he requested in this letter to the Justice Department regarding information on the FISA warrant. And it appears that they refer to, in their letter back to him, that they have to deny his request about this person. And they refer to this person 2 or 3 times. That's the issue at hand. So we have to ask the question, who is the person specifically regarding the FISA situation that Devin Nunez is interested in? Well, I think everybody assumes, about 99% people who think about it for a minute, assume that he's talking about Judge Contreras. Judge Contreras, of course, was the one who was first involved in the Michael Flynn case. He heard the case, took the plea, and then he recused himself a week later. It's also, we learned from the Peter's been stroking us and Lisa Page texts, that Peter's been stroking us knew and was well acquainted with Judge Contreras. And they had that conversation about how they were going to have a dinner party. They would have to invite other people to throw other people off so they wouldn't just think it's a secret meeting between Peter's been stroking us and Judge Contreras. But obviously that's what the scheme that they were cooking up. It's clear in the emails because they say it. So Nunez is reading those text messages and going, So they want to arrange a dinner so Strzok can talk to Contreras. And Contreras is a guy who was in the Flynn case, took the guilty plea, and then resigned, recused himself from the case. And we know about a lot of the things that were done to get the FISA warrant. So I think that Nunez specifically wants to know if it was Judge Contreras that signed off on any of those FISA warrants, especially the last one that Rosenstein did to extend that Title I FISA warrant so that it could be used by Uncle Bob, the special executioner, to get surveillance on everyone around Trump. Because when you ask for a reauthorization of a FISA warrant, you're supposed to also include with it the reasons for why you need to continue it. And one of those reasons usually has to be that the previous surveillance has revealed certain criminal activity or certain activity that continues to desire more information. We don't know if that document even exists. The whole thing at this FISA court and how this was all done, it seems very shady. We already know that 99.7% of FISA requests are granted. We know the very first one requested back in early 2016 was denied. It's probably because it was on Trump Tower. They couldn't get that done, so they used British GCHQ to get it done. That is who we think that is being referred to in the DOJ Sessions letter back to Nunez. We believe it's Judge Contreras. And that's what Nunez wants to know. Was Contreras the FISA court judge who signed off on any of the warrants? What is the relationship between Peter's been stroking us and Contreras? And who else does Contreras have conflicts with? Mueller? Comey? McCabe? Anyone else? A lot of questions need to be answered on that particular issue, as with many issues. Here's a question for you, and again, this goes back to Patty's question. I mean, Patty asked a question about 2 or 3 videos ago that opened up like 19,000 different doors that we're probably going to be opening now for the next couple of weeks while we try to, because, again, I mean, the question she asked, you have to take about 3 or 4 different roads and just travel down each one to try to get to some sort of resolution. So it's been on my mind. So again, thinking about that question that Patty asked and going down another road, it's kind of another road, is I'm asking now the question which is parallel to the question she asked. And my question is, based on what we heard from Judge Ellis on Friday and what we see developing within the Congress and what we've been hearing about for quite a while from certain members of the Freedom Caucus about the frame-up and how this thing stinks to high heaven, it looks very conspiratorial, and all the rest. So based on that, I come up with this question that I ask myself and all of you to contemplate. Could Uncle Bob the executioner, Bob Mueller, the special executioner, be charged with abuse of power using the special counsel office to destroy Trump. Because we just had a judge come out and say in court, a federal judge, come out and say, it looks like to me that you're obstructing, abusing your power to go after people around the president to get them to sing and say something that you can use to take down the president. That's what this judge said in court. We've had members of Congress saying it. That's why I say it's time to drag Rosenstein, or actually Rosenstein as well, but so it's time to drag Uncle Bob, the executioner, Mueller, into Congress and question him. And one thing I think we need to start considering, and we may start hearing talk about, is whether or not he has crossed the line to the point where it is criminal. If Uncle Bob, the executioner, Mueller, has used Title I FISA warrants, the FBI goon squad doing these no-knock raids and the whole 9 yards for intimidation, if he has used his authority to engage in these types of activities, there is a point where you cross the line into the criminal. How many of you think Uncle Bob, the executioner, has crossed the line into criminal territory? And that would answer Patty Willing's question, has a special counsel ever been criminally charged during an investigation? And I think Patty may have, again, without knowing it, stated something that could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Pat yourself on the back, Patty. Maybe you somehow subconsciously set this into motion. Because now we can legitimately ask the question, because we have a federal judge raising the question, as well as members of Congress and others, including yours truly. So, yes, it does appear to me that Uncle Bob has used this authority he was given, and I don't even know that Rosenstein had the authority to give Mueller the authority he's got. That's also in question. But for the purpose of this discussion, he does have that power. He's been given essentially that kind of power, unless this judge calls him out on it, or Congress calls him in and sets him straight on exactly what he can and cannot do. And in fact, Sessions should end this whole thing. But that's a but, and we're dealing with the realities of what is and not what should be. So we do have Mueller there with all that power. It appears that if in fact you can make the case that he was using his authority for harassment to try to run a campaign against a target, to put pressure on people. This is what they do to mobsters when they're trying to take down a mobster or a big drug kingpin. They put pressure on people around them to crumble them. This is the type of tactic that the FBI will use. But you don't use that on a sitting president and try to overturn an election. It's gross violation and abuse of power. I think the case can be made. I think that Congress should make the case. And I think that you might see, I wouldn't be surprised to see it all, if things get really ugly in the next couple weeks between Giuliani and Mueller. I wouldn't be surprised to see Giuliani threaten this very action against Mueller if the Congress doesn't act. But they all need to act. The Congress needs to immediately subpoena, and they have that authority, subpoena Mueller in for questionings and a hearing. And Giuliani needs to follow up by filing a civil lawsuit against Mueller, which could be proven in civil court, a much lower bar, and that could also be used to launch a criminal investigation. In other words, massive offense. They want to play. Let's see how Mueller feels when he has got to spend millions and millions of dollars defending himself against lawsuits in civil court, and maybe in criminal court. Because yes, he is guilty of abuse of power of the Office of Special Counsel, being part of the insurance policy, the frame-up, and the cover-ups. And for the big reason that he's doing all this is to cover up the really big crime, which involves the Uranium One scandal, the rotten Reverend Clinton. And we'll have more to say about that before this video is over. In fact, I have so much information here, I'm not even... I just covered the first page and there's only 5 minutes left. It's probably going to be a two-part video. The second video probably would not be maybe a half an hour, maybe a 15-minute video or something, but I'm not going to get anywhere near where I need to be, so we might be extended here. We will see how we do. Okay, so another question that came up in the comments section that we've never really drilled down on before. We've never really drilled down. Now, we've talked about the fact that a few videos ago that we've learned, I don't know that it's been confirmed, but it was published in the Gateway Pundit. It was also published in the American Thinker with two different sources. How reliable these sources are, I don't know. But it was reported in those two sites, the American Thinker and Gateway Pundit, that one of the first calls that Comey made after he was fired from aboard the airplane coming back from California to D.C. was to Uncle Bob Mueller, the special executioner. So we're asking the question, why would Comey, after shortly being fired, why would he choose Uncle Bob, especially since he stated in an interview that he wasn't this great close friend of Uncle Bob, the special executioner. He said, oh, we've had dinner a couple times, played golf. But as it turns out, his family has vacationed together. Their families have vacationed together on at least 3 occasions. They're a lot closer than Comey makes them sound. And if it's true that Mueller was one of the people, if not the first person, one of the first few people Comey contacted after being fired, that is a major, major piece of information. And so what we need to know is exactly what were the communications between Comey, Mueller, Rosenstein, and anyone who may have been an intermediary for the rotten Reverend Clinton. And who else knew about this? But taking that line of questioning, and we move on from there, we had a comment that was asking, why did Rosenstein fire Comey? After all, they're really good friends. They're both working on the exact same plot, the frame-up. So why would Rosenstein fire his buddy, Comey? And how would Comey feel about that? Well, it's been suggested, and I think that most of us believe, that there's something fishy going on there. We know who really chose Uncle Bob. We know who really put the team together. We know that essentially when the special executioner, Uncle Bob Mueller, came in and took over, he essentially came in and took over the counterintelligence operation, which was being run by the small group, which had been headed up by Comey. First, it was an operation to exonerate the rotten Reverend by fixing her email investigation and then covering that up, exonerating her not once but twice. And then it became an operation against Trump, a propaganda campaign to destroy his credibility by suggesting he was collaborating with the Russians or whatever. And then once he became president, it became an operation to destroy him, take him down, destroy everyone around him, and try to take the Republicans down with him so that the Democrats could get back control of the House. And why are they doing all this? Well, largely to cover up a lot of crimes, especially one big fat crime. And that's the Uranium One deal, which also ties directly into the Clinton Foundation and the massive pay-for-play. It's the big enchilada on the plate, you might say. So we are now at the end of this video. I'm in mid-flight of a conversation, so I'm going to go ahead and do a second video. So just look for video number 2, and I'll pick up on the other side. I'll see you in just a moment.